Good morning, preschoolers. Today I want to read you a story from a book. It's called The Treasury of Mermaids. It is mermaid tales from around the world, and the stories in this book were collected and retold by Shirley Climo, and then the illustrations are done by Jean Mucien Sang. So this book has 10 short stories in it, and they're all about different tales of mermaids from different countries. And the first one I'm going to read today is called The Sea Princess and the Sea Witch, and it's from Scotland. This book does not have very many pictures, so as I'm reading the words to the story, if you want to get a piece of paper and some markers or crayons and draw your own illustrations as I'm reading, because you're going to use your imagination to imagine what the pictures look like in your head. Once when the coastal waters off Scotland held as much magic as salt, there was a sea princess. The king of the sea was her father, the queen was her mother, and they lived in a grand sand castle at the bottom of the ocean. The princess was different from her parents. When they were in the water, the king and queen had graceful fishtails. Not so their daughter. She always had 2 feet and 10 toes. I don't want toes, the princess complained to her mother. Tails are better for swimming. Will I ever grow one? No, the queen shook her head. You take after your great-grandfather, she added kindly. A most courageous sailor. A human? Cried the princess. Did you really see him? Once, long ago, on the island of Staffa, when I went there to gather apples. Take me to visit Staffa, begged the princess. You're too young, replied the queen, and it is too dangerous. Each autumn, the queen went by herself to visit the deserted island of Staffa. She liked to roam the rocky beach that stretched beneath the gray bluffs. She took care not to wander near the cave where the yellow sea grapes grew on their sickly green stems, for that was the lair of the sea witch. The witch was said to know all the secrets of the sea, but the queen did not trust her to use her skills for good. The queen walked into the opposite direction, searching for wave-tossed treasures and looking for windfalls that dropped from a cliff-top apple tree. The tree, although old and gnarled, bore sweet rosy fruit. The queen always saved the biggest and reddest apple for her daughter. Remember, the queen would caution as the princess bit into the apple, not everything on land is good to eat. On one of the queen's visits to Staffa, a great storm rose. Before she could reach the safety of the deep water, wild seahorses rushed from the ocean and galloped over the rocks. The queen, caught in their path, died beneath their hooves. The Sea King locked himself in his chambers, mourning her for a year and a day. When at last he ventured out, he saw his daughter, silent and sad, her brown eyes clouded with tears. How selfish I have been, cried the king. You are even more in want of a mother than I am of a wife. Then the king of the sea himself visited the island of Staffa. He went to the cave where the yellow sea grapes grew on their sickly green stems. Wise woman, he called, you are the keeper of knowledge. Tell me where to find a mother for my daughter. Here, my lord, the sea witch came out of the cave. She was beautiful, with hair as black as a sea raven's wings and eyes the gray-green of the ocean. Take me as wife. When I am queen, I will care for the princess. So the king married the sea witch and took her to his pearly white palace beneath the ocean. The witch put on the queen's robes and sat on the queen's throne. She wore the queen's jewels and slept in the queen's bed, but she did not care for the queen's daughter. Each day the witch invented a terrible task for the princess. Sweep the sand from the ocean floor, she demanded, or count every herring in the sea. The king, busy managing the currents and the tides, paid little attention to matters in the palace. Still, despite her father's absent-minded neglect and the witch's intended cruelty, The natural beauty of the princess grew with the years. One evening, the king put aside his timetables and sea charts and inspected the princess. "You have done well," he praised the witch. "My daughter is the fairest in the ocean." Envy, bitter and burning, rose in the sea witch's throat. "I am not finished with her yet," she replied. The next day, the witch told the princess, "A special task awaits us on Staffa." The princess was overjoyed to visit the island at last, but once there she grew wistful of her mother. "Have we come for apples?" she asked. "Apples? Bah!" spat the witch. "I've something better in mind." She led the princess to the cave where the yellow sea grapes grew. "Try one," she urged. The princess picked a grape, but she remembered her mother's warning and did not eat it. The witch pinched the girl's cheeks and pushed the grape into her open mouth. "Swallow!" she screeched. The princess choked and the grape rolled down her throat. At once she felt whiskers sprouting on her cheeks. Her arms numbed and became flippers. Her legs began to tingle, and a tail grew where her feet had been. There's one small picture here. The sea witch smirked. "You wanted a tail." The princess looked at her reflection in the tide pool. Her own brown eyes stared back from the face of a seal. "A seal you are, and a seal you shall stay," the witch chanted in her ear, "save for one night and one day each year. Then, when the harvest moon shines bright above Staffa, you may again become a princess." The sea witch left the sea maiden by the cave. "Now who's the fairest in the ocean?" called the witch, and she chuckled all the way back to the sea king's palace. "Your nuisance of a daughter is gone," she told him. "Gone where?" asked the king, bewildered. "Gone and lost forever," the witch answered. "And good riddance, say I." "Evil one," thundered the king, "this is your wicked doing. It is you who shall be gone, now." The king never saw the witch again, and he never knew that the shy seal that swam beside the palace was the princess. Once every 12 months, when the apples were ripe and the moon was full, a seal climbed out of the sea and onto Staffa's stony beach. Slipping from sealskin, it became a maiden and remained so until sundown the next day. One such time, when the princess was wandering the beach, she saw a young fisherman sitting on a flat rock. "You're human," she exclaimed. The lad gawked at her. "As human as you are." The girl laughed and stared down at her feet. "We are a lot alike." "I'm not nearly so pretty," said the fisher lad. The princess smiled. "Please stay," she said, "just for today." The lad caught hold of her hand. Together they gathered apples, looked for seashells, and danced in the waves to the music of the sea. But as the sun disappeared into the ocean, the maiden suddenly broke away and vanished into the shadows. "Come back," called the fisher lad. He scrambled after her, but found only a small gray seal, gazing up at him with warm brown eyes. Then the fisher lad understood. This was no ordinary girl. She was a Selkie, a seal maiden. Every autumn, until he was old man, the fisherman came back to Staffa. He never married, nor loved another. He sat on the same rock, a ripe apple in his hand, knowing that his sea princess would return. That's the end of that story. And there's one more picture here in the front of the sea witch and the seal.